here.
It's beautiful.
Does anybody know what this is?
It's a sailboat.
Nice. Okay. All right, so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And believe it or not, there's a lot more to sailing than you think. It's pretty much a science. You have your basic parts of a sailboat you need to learn in order to be safe, and your wind directions, which I'll get into later, and also safety. Safety is a big part. And then I'll conclude about my involvement in sailing as well. So I'll start with this. The most important parts of a sailboat, what you see here, is you have the rudder. But a lot of people notice this first, and that's the mainsail. Yep. And the mainsail is attached to the center mast, and they call this the boom. Does anybody know why it's called the boom?
Because it'll hit you.
There you go, yeah. It swings back and forth like this, and if you're not watching,
Boom.
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 And so moving down, you have your lines. Now that brings up another question. Is it a rope or is it a line?
More like a line.
I would say rope.
Rope?
Maybe
Okay, so that question has been brought up before. And a guy by the name of Doug Dawson, he's the president of the Ontario Marine Operations Association for 23 years. He had a pretty good explanation on what a rope and what a line is. His explanation is, it defines a cordage with no job as being a rope, meaning just laying on the floor. And once that cordage is designed to be employed, meaning tied up,
becomes a line.
and it becomes a line. Pretty simple, like glass half full, half empty kind of thing. So for the small to mid-sized sailboats, and even the most large ones, you'll have two sails, the mainsail, and I didn't draw it here because it's not very common. Depends on how experienced you are, but there'd be what's called a jib in front. And that's mainly for this wind direction, which we'll talk about later. The most important parts of the sailboat, other than the mainsail, the mast, the rudder, is actually the centerboard. I don't know, many people don't realize because it's underwater that there is a centerboard sticking down. And this is to kind of keep the sailboat from shifting back and forth. Because if this wasn't here and the wind's blowing, you'll just float side to side, to front to back. This is kind of like your nail in the water, if that makes any sense, to keep you on line so that the sail can do all the work by pushing you whichever direction. And next that brings up the wind direction. It's also another important piece of sailing. And this is more like the science of it. So I drew you this little piece right here, and it's from the schoolofsailing.org. And basically what it's saying is the wind direction is coming from, think of it like a compass. Wind direction is coming from the north, south, east, west. And this area right here, do you guys know? It's called the no sail zone. Meaning if you're sailing directly into the wind, then what do you think your sail's gonna do?
Flapping.
Flap, there you go. And this is called irons. Why it's called irons? I don't know. But just remember this is the no sail zone and irons is the no. And that brings up your two fastest points of sail. So if you're going, 1 o'clock to the 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock, right? That's your fastest point of sail because it's basically having the most force and pressure put on your sail to push you forward. And then you have your, perpendicular, and you see the sail kind of flared out a little bit. So just give you an understanding of where the boom will be, so you don't get hit. And then you have, this is called running. So this is a little more unpredictable, I'd say, because here at the fastest point, you can kind of predict the fluffs, they call it, of the wind, and determine whether or not there's going to be a big fluff or a low fluff. This one, if there's no fluff or no wind, you're just kind of dead in the water. Your momentum is kind of not really going So, speaking of this, just like driving on the roadways, there's some traffic laws when boating. And a few key safety tips to remember is always maintain a proper lookout. So when you're sailing, you should really sail with two people, because what if you fall in the water, your boat's just gonna, right? And that second person can be a lookout for you. Never drink while you're on the water, just like a car, you can still get a DUI. Always maintain a sail speed, especially when you're underway and the waterways are crowded. And motorized vessels are expected to give way to sailboats, because if you're motorized, you can maneuver a little bit more consistently. Yeah. The only exception of this is for shipping lanes. You know, big military destroyer, right? You need to give way to him, because believe it or not, your little tiny sailboat can probably maneuver better than they can, and cruise ships as well. So when you're talking about right of way, the port side of the boat is on the left, and the starboard side is on the right. So if a sailboat you're on is on the same track, and the windward side gives you the way, so basically if you're coming from the starboard side, it's meaning you're coming this way towards another boat. Because the boat is on your starboard side, you give way to that boat. Now if it's flipped around and the boat is on your port side, it's flipped around, you're actually the boat on the starboard side, so you have the right of way. So again, safety is always top priority. You need to do your research on the waterway you'll be sailing, or the lake, or wherever you want to be. I don't know about river sailing, but so a good website to go to is boatus.org to find all the safety tips. I'm not going to go into detail on fire extinguisher if you actually do have a motorized sailboat. And that's about it. So I'll end up with this. Sailing is for all ages, and it's vital that you understand the basics to enhance your sailing experience. Basics such as the parts of your sailboat, the wind direction, and safety precautions. So also, before you plan your trip, be sure to check the local boating laws, because it's a big thing. Every state's different. Some states require you to wear your life jackets, some other states don't require it. Other states might require you to do like an online course to qualify. So, happy sailing and have fun. Hope you guys learned something.
Thank you.
Interesting topic.
Will we do
Yeah.
Venice Rider yet?